So, it's the fact that awareness is aware of itself is self-evident. I have many exercises that show this. So if I am aware that I am aware, and that awareness appears within the field of awareness, then I'm also aware of being aware of being aware.
No.
So this is my question, why not?
Because can you go back any further in your experience than the experience of being aware of being aware? Try to go further back. If I were to ask you now, are you aware? What would you say?
Yes.
So in order to say yes, you have to visit the experience of being aware. Or you have to know the experience of being aware. And it is because you do know the experience of being aware, or because you are aware of the experience of being aware, that you can say yes to the question. Now, can you go further back in your experience than the experience of being aware that I am aware? That shows that it is the single awareness itself that is aware of itself. So even in the experience, I am aware that I am aware. There are not two experiences, there are not two awarenesses. The experience of being aware is awareness of itself. There is only one awareness there.
Yes.
Awareness
being aware.
is aware that it is aware.
Yes.
You cannot go further back in your experience than that. If you stick with your experience that awareness is aware of itself, you can't go further back. It's not an endless regression. It would only be an endless regression if awareness was an object. And then there would be an awareness of that object. And then there would be another awareness behind that awareness that was aware of the awareness that was aware of the object. And then you could go back and back and back and back. But in each case, in order to go back, the awareness that was now in front would have to be an object of your attention. And then the awareness that is aware of that object would have, in a subsequent stage, would then have to itself become the object of another awareness. But that is never the case. Awareness never becomes the object of its own attention. You cannot go further back than being aware of being aware.
But awareness then has this sort of, there's a sort of little magical twist to it in which it can, because awareness doesn't have to step behind itself to know that it's aware.
Exactly, because if it had to step behind itself to know that it was aware, there would be one awareness in the background, the subject, and one awareness in the foreground, the object. There would be two awarenesses, but that is not our experience. Our experience is I am aware, and the I that is aware is itself aware that it is aware. In other words, our experience is that there is one awareness that is aware of itself. It never becomes its own object, and therefore never becomes its own subject. Being aware of being aware. Being aware is simultaneously the subject and object of experience. And you never find an awareness behind that knows the experience of awareness. Otherwise, awareness would have to become an object and therefore would be limited, and therefore wouldn't any longer be awareness, it would be mind. So it is absolutely not our experience that there is an endless regression of awarenesses. That is just a convoluted act of thinking.
The last thing I'll say, it doesn't require a response, is just it's very fascinating to me that awareness has this single loop, single loop structure that's not bigger than that and not smaller than that. That it's exactly awareness being aware of itself, period.
Yes.
No more, no less. That's fascinating.
No, but it is it is important to draw attention to this because it is absolutely the crux of the teaching that awareness is aware of being aware. The experience of being aware of being aware. It's the heart of the matter. It is our primary experience. When I say our primary experience, it is awareness's primary experience to be aware of itself. And it knows itself by itself, without rising in the form of the mind, without making an effort, without doing any practice. It is the only truly effortless experience there is, even less effort than blinking or breathing. And it is everybody's primary experience. So it is good to spend some time really establishing that awareness experiences itself, the experience of being aware of itself in all of us. And that knowledge shines in the mind as the knowledge I. That is what the knowledge I refers to, or I am. The feeling I am is awareness's knowing of its own being, shining in our minds. And it is that we all have in common. The recognition of that is the experience of love. And it is the foundation of harmonious relationship in ourselves, between intimate partners, between friends, and between nations. So it is at the risk of laboring it, and it is not, even though it may appear at first to be an intellectual discussion, it actually draws attention to something that is really the heart of the non-dual teaching. And you find it, whether the non-dual teaching is expressed in mystical Christianity, in the Zen tradition, in the Dzogchen tradition, in the Kashmiri Shaivite tradition, in the Muslim tradition, the Sufis, whatever tradition, if you go really to the heart of it, this core understanding, which is everybody's intimate experience, is what is being referred to.
You talk about the finite mind.
Yes.
And then when I try to find my mind, I don't find anything. It's just thoughts. And I always understood Ramana Maharshi called it just a bundle of thoughts.
Yes.
At least that's what I read somewhere. Maybe that wasn't a right translation or something. But it does seem like the mind is like, is it a functionality? Is it part of the whirlpool? And some people have better minds than other people. I mean, some people are slow, some people are fast.
Yes.
It just confuses me as to what exactly the mind is and why do we have one?
Okay.
If we do.
I use the word mind in two different ways. I use it in a very specific way just to mean thoughts and images, as opposed to the perception of this room. That's a perception, or as opposed to a sensation, which would be a headache, for instance. So sometimes I use the word mind very narrowly, basically to mean thoughts, or thoughts and images. But I also use the term in a more general way to include all thoughts, sensations, and perceptions, all thoughts, feelings, sensations, and perceptions. So there, the term mind covers everything that we experience objectively. And actually, when Ramana Maharshi uses the word thoughts, he just said a bundle of thoughts. What he meant was a bundle of thoughts and perceptions. Although the word he used was thoughts, he really meant the totality of objective experience. That's the finite mind. Why? Because everything that is experienced objectively is finite. It has a limit, either in time or space. So those are the two ways in which I use the word mind. What is mind? If we explore the stuff that mind is made of, all that's there is consciousness.
Right.
And in some traditions, instead of calling objective experience mind and its essential reality, or the stuff that it is made of, consciousness, they call it, they don't have two different words. they say that there is the finite mind, thoughts, sensations, and perceptions, but the original mind, they call it consciousness. That the original nature of the mind, before it has been colored by thought and perception, is what we here call consciousness or awareness. Or it's sometimes called pure mind in Buddhism. And there's something very efficient about that. I like that use of the word mind. In other words, mind objectively is thoughts, sensations, and perceptions, but the subjective face of the mind, the original mind, pure mind, is just empty mind before it has taken the shape of thought and perception. There's something to be said for not giving it another word. In the same way that to distinguish between a screen and an image can be quite confusing. It suggests that there are two things, one called an image and one called a screen. So certain traditions don't do that. They talk about the colorless screen and the colored screen. The original mind and the finite mind. It's all the same stuff. But the finite mind is the infinite mind colored or assuming the form of a limitation. So sometimes here we call that consciousness. Consciousness is the pure mind, the original mind, and then mind is consciousness objectified. Consciousness taking the form of thought and perception. So the finite mind is the image. Pure mind or pure consciousness is the screen. They're the same thing. The screen is the essence of the image. It is the reality of the image. The image is a temporary coloring of the screen. So pure mind, or the original mind, or pure consciousness, is the essential nature of experience. Pure consciousness. It is this pure consciousness that colors itself in the form of thought and perception and appears as the world. So we could say that the finite mind is consciousness objectified. The finite mind is the objective face of reality. The original mind or pure consciousness is the subjective face of reality, but they're two sides of the same reality. Why do we have a finite mind, or why is there such a thing as a finite mind? Because if there was no finite mind, no manifestation would come into existence. There would just be empty awareness. But empty awareness, that there is this, because in empty awareness there is no knowledge of anything other than itself. In other words, there is no duality. Empty awareness is identical to love. It is love. There's no duality in awareness's experience of itself. That is the experience of love or peace, and it is in the nature of love or peace to manifest itself. So that there is this natural movement of consciousness to appear as the world, to celebrate itself in the form of manifestation. And in order to do that, it needs to take the form of finite experience. So it is consciousness itself that takes the form of the mind in order to bring manifestation into apparent existence. In other words, the mind is, we could say it is a function of consciousness. It is the function through which consciousness brings manifestation into existence. And in order to do so, it has to seem to limit itself. It seems to limit the knowing of its own infinite being. It turns away from the knowing of its own infinite being. And that enables it to know something finite called all of this. And it does this freely. It freely assumes limitations, just as the screen freely limits itself in order to appear as the movie. It is an act of love. It's the same impulse of a mother giving birth to a child, freely limiting herself in order to bring forth her love, in order to manifest her love in form. It's the same impulse, the impulse of love to create, to manifest.
I have two questions, but I think they're probably simple. One is, what makes my experience mine?
Do you mean what makes experience mine in the sense that it's my intimate experience, or yours as opposed to somebody else's?
Yes, the latter.
Can you imagine having more than one experience at a time? What I call an experience in this context is the totality of the current thought, sensation, and perception. You can only have one experience at a time. You can't watch two movies at once. Yeah. So imagine that the current experience you were having was not your experience, but was, let's say, my experience. How would you experience that? It would still be experienced as my experience. Because mind, by definition, can only have one experience at a time, because that's what the mind is. It is a precipitation within consciousness, a single precipitation within consciousness. And each of our experience feels intimate because it is intimate to the consciousness that is experiencing it. So everybody is at this moment having the experience of my experience. It wouldn't be possible to have an experience that was not my experience. And in fact, let's say that you were having this experience rather than that experience now. You wouldn't know that it was something other than the experience you are having now, because you would still experience it as my experience.
Got it. Thank you. Second question. I was intrigued by your, at the beginning, your description of attention as, going on a path towards an object and then sort of realizing the duality and the object making in that expedient means. So without that, what is attention?
Well, to begin with, it is this stretching of awareness towards the object. And awareness seems to be the subject located here, and the object seems to be the object located there, and attention is the pathway between the two. That's in the first stage. Then the second stage that we explored this morning is when attention doesn't have to stretch itself away from itself towards the object, but the object is seen to appear here, not here the body, but here consciousness. So then there's no distance between consciousness and its object, because its object is seen to appear in consciousness, not just to consciousness. So the distance between consciousness and its objects, in the first stage there is both a distance between consciousness and its object and a distinction between consciousness and its object. In the second stage, when the object is felt as appearing inside consciousness, the distance between consciousness and its object has been dissolved, but the distinction between consciousness and its object hasn't. A distinction between the subjectness of consciousness and the objectness of the object dissolves. And then we no longer use the image of the space-like presence of our consciousness with the object appearing in it. We use the metaphor of the self-aware screen, which is itself modulating itself in the form of the image, So the screen isn't one thing, the subject, and the image another, the object. There is just one thing which is not a thing, which is neither a subject or an object of experience. It is just this infinite consciousness modulating itself as the totality of experience. Sorry, just to finish that. And then there is neither a distance between consciousness and its object, nor a distinction between consciousness and its object.
And in that case, does it not make any sense to think of directing my attention to something?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. You feel more that you are like this self-aware screen, this dimensionless self-aware screen, the self-aware screen of consciousness, and all experience is a play upon you. That all experience is you, consciousness, vibrating in the form of thought, in the form of sensation, in the form of perception. But the only stuff that is present in experience is consciousness itself.
Thank you.
This morning I was sitting in meditation practice and I perceived the thought, which I couldn't do when you were asking us to do this, but I was able to feel the sensation of my hands. And there was the seeing of its arising and moving away.
Okay.
And there was the awareness that there was something other than the thought that was perceiving it.
Okay, perfect.
Right? And in my spiritual experience, practice, and teachings that I've heard, they say, but even that's aware is still not, it's still like the witness. And one has to go beyond the witness. So
no, you don't go beyond the witness. You relieve awareness of its witness-like quality. You don't go beyond the witness. The witness is just a subtle superimposition upon awareness. Awareness is relieved of its witness-like quality. So when you say, I am aware of my thought, yes, awareness plus an object. This is just an intermediary stage. You're still in duality here. It's like enlightened duality. I am awareness, and I am aware of an object called a thought. I, the subject, awareness, the witnessing presence of awareness, and the object, the thought. Yeah, there are still two things here. This is duality still, but it's enlightened duality because I'm no longer mistaking myself for an object, that is a body-mind. I know that I am the transparent, empty, open, witnessing presence of awareness. Yes? Now, the teaching sometimes says you have to go beyond that witnessing. No, you don't go beyond it. You can't go beyond awareness. What happens is the distinction between the witness and the object collapses. Just like the screen and the image are not two things, so awareness and its thought are not two things. When that is seen clearly, the subjectness of awareness and the objectness of the thought collapse, and they are realized as one. Then you have gone beyond the witnessing aspect of awareness. And what remains, this one substance, is pure awareness, the only substance there is in experience. You haven't gone beyond the witness. You have relieved awareness of this last subtle layer of superimposition. First of all, thought invests awareness with the limitations and the destiny of the body-mind. As a first step towards reality, the teaching says no, awareness doesn't share the qualities of the body-mind. It is the witness of the body-mind. And you suddenly realize, oh, yes, I'm not my thoughts and feelings. I am the one that is aware of my thoughts and feelings. Okay, that's That's a halfway stage, enlightened duality. But we're still a subject and an object. But the subject is no longer the body-mind, the subject is now the witnessing presence of awareness. Awareness has been relieved of a gross superimposition of the body-mind, but it still retains a subtle superimposition, the witness. So with this next step, this last superimposition, its witnessing function, as the subject and object collapse, there is no longer any thing to witness, there is no longer any object to witness, and therefore it is no longer a subject. These two collapse. That collapse is the experience of love, the absence of the inside self and the outside other. That is what's called going beyond the witness. But we don't go beyond awareness. Awareness is just relieved of a layer of superimposition.
What makes possible the collapse to happen?
The collapse doesn't happen because the distinction between the two was never real in the first place. What makes it possible for the distinction between the screen and the image to collapse? How does the collapse of the distinction between your email and the screen take place? It doesn't. They're not two things there in the first place. If there was an email and a screen, they would have to collapse and become the same thing. Yeah? But they're already the same thing. Email is just another name for screen. Yes? What happens, what affects the collapse of the distinction between awareness and its objects? The understanding, and by understanding I don't mean intellectual understanding, the clear seeing that there was never any distinction between them in the first place. The distinction was imagined by thought, superimposed by thought onto the reality of experience, which is just made out of this luminous, empty knowing. Not two things. Advaita. You don't go beyond the witness. The witness is just a subtle superimposition upon awareness. Awareness is relieved of its witness-like quality. So that's the way to go. Explore your experience in that way. Ask yourself the question, have I ever known, or could I ever know, anything other than the knowing of experience, the awareness of experience? Try now to find something other than the knowing of experience. It's not even the knowing of experience. We never find the of experience. We never find something separate from knowing. When I say we never find, who is the we that never finds anything separate from knowing? It is knowing itself. It is awareness itself that never finds anything other than the awareness of experience. But in fact, awareness doesn't know the awareness of experience. From awareness's point of view, it is not one thing and experience another. It is not a separate subject of experience knowing a separate object, other or world. Experience is awareness. Experience is the activity of awareness, the vibration of awareness. So when I say we never know anything other than the knowing of experience, the we is knowing itself. And the experience is knowing itself. So what I mean is that knowing never knows anything other than knowing. Awareness is and knows itself alone. Start with awareness. You, I, we are awareness. And awareness is without parts. without any inside, without any outside. It is indivisible, indestructible, self-knowing. It is not possible to meditate upon awareness. Who would meditate upon awareness? Who would know awareness? Who would be aware of awareness? Only awareness itself. Awareness doesn't need to do anything to know itself, just like the sun doesn't need to do anything to illuminate itself. There is no need for practice, for meditation, for effort, no room for a path. There is no distance between awareness and itself, no time for a practice, no room for any effort to occur. See that and be free. Know that you have never been anything other than awareness. You have never known anything other than awareness. You have never been anywhere. You have never done anything. The common name for this simple recognition is peace or happiness. Not happiness, a state of the mind or a pleasant sensation in the body. Happiness, that is fulfillment, the absence of lack, the sense of completion. No experience can diminish me. No experience can aggrandize me. I am whole. I am indivisible. All experience is made out of myself. I need nothing, but am everything. Start in awareness. Start as awareness. Be only awareness. Know only awareness. Love only awareness.